Hello students and welcome to lecture video 3 on chapter 9. We're starting off today talking about the effects of the Spanish-American War, which we've discussed in the first two videos. Number one, as we've already talked about, the Teller Amendment prevented the U.S. from taking land in Cuba, so Cuba went back to the people and the people were allowed to rule themselves. Number two, there was a huge argument in this country about imperialism. Some people said, yes, we should take colonies. The U.S. should have colonies around the world. They said that we had a responsibility to govern the Filipinos after we took the Philippines from Spain. They said that if we held the islands, they would help our trade with China. And they said if we didn't colonize them, somebody else would. However, there were many in this country that were against imperialism. They said it's against the principles of our government because we believe that people should rule themselves, so we should not rule other colonies. And they said that imperialism was a crime and we shouldn't do it. This was a huge debate in our country during this time. Now, the U.S. and East Asia. The U.S. For a while decided to keep the Philippines, and the Filipino freedom fighter Emilio Aguinaldo then began fighting against us. He didn't want anyone ruling their country besides Filipinos, so he fought against the Spanish, and once they were defeated, he then started fighting against us. He used guerrilla warfare tactics, which include surprise raids and hit-and-run attacks. We started to trade with China. Now, at this time, there were what are called spheres of influence in China, which means each country got to trade and do business in a certain section of China. The U.S., however, was cut out of this. We didn't have a sphere in which to trade. So therefore, in 1899, the United States Secretary of State, John Hay, declared what was known as the open door policy. This said that all nations have equal access to Chinese commerce. Now, this is important because this is one of the first times that the United States, which is a new world power, has asserted their dominance in a foreign country, putting our will over them, basically telling everyone there is going to be free trade in China. So this is an early example of the U.S. exercising their new world power. The Chinese began to resent all of these outsiders coming in and trading and doing business, and they started to fight against the foreigners, and this was known as the Boxer Rebellion. They were known as Boxers because they practiced martial arts, and the Europeans and the Americans that saw this did not know about karate or martial arts, so they called it boxing. So therefore, this became known as the Boxer Rebellion, where Chinese used severe violence against foreigners. We also had the Russo-Japanese War, a war between Russia and Japan that happened at this time. Teddy Roosevelt, the president of the United States at the time, called both countries to the White House and negotiated a peace treaty, and because of this, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. So he's a winner of both the Congressional Medal of Honor for War and the Nobel Peace Prize for Peace, a very accomplished man. The United States Navy at this time was known as the Great White Fleet because it was painted all white, and it was the most modern, most up-to-date, most powerful Navy in the world. And if you would, please pause your videos right now and turn to page 267. In 1907, Teddy Roosevelt sent the entire fleet on a goodwill tour around the world. However, the true purpose was to show the other countries the new military power of the United States. Now, Latin America, which is the countries of Mexico and all of South America, the U.S. and Latin America began doing business a lot more during this time. We maintained some control of Puerto Rico after the Spanish-American War. We also had the Platt Amendment passed by Congress, which gave us partial control over Cuba. Now, we didn't own Cuba, we didn't annex Cuba, but it made them a U.S. protectorate, which means the U.S. took the responsibility of protecting Cuba from other countries around the world. Now, President Roosevelt's foreign policy, his diplomacy, was known as big stick diplomacy. It was based on a proverb, a motto that Teddy Roosevelt had, which was walk softly and carry a big stick. In other words, rely on a powerful military to back up your foreign policy, but don't do a lot of talking. Just have enough power to back up what you want to do. This was exercised in the Panama Canal. We wanted to build a canal linking the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. We had bought what is known as the Canal Zone for $40 million. However, Colombia, the country of Colombia in South America, would not allow us to build. So therefore, Teddy Roosevelt supported a rebellion to overthrow the Colombian government. They created a new country called Panama, which in turn allowed us to build the canal. Now, during the building of this canal, more than 35,000 workers helped, 5,000 died from disease and accidents, and it cut 8,000 miles off a trip from the East Coast to the West Coast because we no longer had to sail around South America. We could cross through the Panama Canal. Thank you for watching lecture video number 3.